Okay, so I'd like to invite everyone to please close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. And just to let you know, Sophia, normally when we're physically in a class together, we get in a circle and we say the prayer together. But when we're online, the voices kind of overstep each other and it's just a big mumbled thing. So that's why I usually mute it. And while we're doing the class, I keep everybody on mute to keep down the background sounds. But as we're going through the material, if you have questions, feel free to unmute and make your voice known, and I will address any questions that come up. So we have been working in this section called The Dreamer of the Dream, which starts on page 581. And we are going to start by continuing in that area. And we're going to start on paragraph 11. So my guess is that would be 582 or 583, depending on how many paragraphs were on a page. So if you want to follow along in the book, you'll know where to start. And this particular section is called The Dreamer of the Dream. Was there a question?
There was 584.
584, thank you, Don. This section is called The Dreamer of the Dream. And this is actually a very important section because Jesus is trying very hard for us to understand that despite the fact that I think this is me, and I'm the person that's having this experience that's going on in the world, what's really dreaming or projecting this picture is coming from the mind, coming from our mind that has chosen against what we are or chosen against love. So what's really dreaming the dream of which I am a character in, and everybody and everything else in the world around me are characters in, what's really causing this is the belief in separation from the love of God. And so the whole process of the course is to help us get back to the understanding that this is where the problem lies. It doesn't lie in the world and what appears to seemingly take our peace away and cause us problems in the world. And if you look at it, and I'm sharing this for Sophie, especially since she's new, is think about this as the projector and this is the screen. This is, when you go to a movie theater, you'll see that white screen, and when the movie starts, you'll see the characters dancing and walking around on the screen. But we all know intellectually there's really nobody walking around on the screen. And the only thing we see on the screen is a projection from what's in the movie projector. And in this case, what's in the movie projector is the belief in separation from the love of God. And there's only two parts of our mind. One is identified with the truth in our mind, and the other part is identified with the opposite or the separated belief system. And we're either accessing one or the other of these at any given instant. Now, the problem is when we initially chose to separate from the love of God, and from the perspective of the Course, the reason we did that was because we wanted to be in charge. God had given us everything, and we were an effect of what God was. So, peace and love and joy, connectedness, oneness, eternity are all aspects of God. But the only thing that we did not have that God had was that He was the creator and we were the created. And we wanted to be a creator. So we basically left God or kicked God off the throne. And then we replaced God, again, in our mind as a thought, with a thought of separation, where now There's a me and there's a God. We are now separate from each other. And now the effect of the opposite of what love is guilt, sin, and fear, death, projection, and or different. So we're always trying to find things in the world that will make us feel good, because this is what we're carrying around in our mind, and that's not very comfortable. So we're trying to find things in the world that'll make us feel better. But we're never going to find enough things to make us feel good in the world, because we left oneness and love. And when we left, I'm guessing we were hoping the love was coming with us and that we could now be in charge with the love. But unfortunately, it backfired, because only love remains here. So literally, this entire thought system is based on the opposite of what love is. It's got birth and death versus eternity. This is joy and peace. This is guilt, sin, and fear. So they're literally opposite thought systems. And again, as I mentioned before, you're either aligned with this one or this one at any given instant. And as you see, there's a line down the middle, which delineates the idea that you can't have both of them at the same time. They're mutually exclusive thought system. So the Course talks about the idea of removing the blocks to the awareness of love. We were love, we put this block here. In other words, we filled in the space of love with a thought or an idea in opposition to what love is. So a great deal of the process of working the Course, understanding the Course, is to understand what that block is, or what those blocks are, and why we put them there, and then hopefully eventually for us to learn to drop our connection with the block and realign with who we really are in truth. Now, that's a lot of material to get you started, Sophia, but I hope that gives you a little background. So we're going to start with paragraph number 11, and I'm actually going to start with line 4. All right, so the gap between reality and dreams lies not between the dreaming of the world and what you dream in secret. They are one. The dreaming of the world is but a part of your own dream you gave away and saw as if it were its start and ending both. Yet was it started by your secret dream, which you do not perceive, although it caused the part you see and do not doubt is real. How could you doubt it while you lie asleep and dream in secret that its cause is real? Phew, a lot of stuff in that little couple lines. All right, so again, Sophia, what I normally do is I'll read a paragraph and then I'll go line by line so that we can understand what it really means. So when it says the gap between reality and dream lies not between the dreaming of the world and what you dream in secret. So what I'm going to do first is give the definition according to Ken Wapnick's glossary index of what the word gap is. And the word gap actually is found in quite a number of different places throughout the Course. So it's important to understand what the heck he means when he says the gap. So the gap is the illusionary space between ourselves and others. I'm just going to stop there. So it's an illusionary space between ourselves and others. Now we know as we walk in the world, there appears to be a me and there appears to be many other somethings outside of me that are separate from who I am. And whether we talk about bodies or we talk about, physical things in our world, like our toaster or cars or our animals or anything, doesn't matter what this character is defined as. There's a me and a something else. Okay, and there's actually a me in my body. You could even go that far in this regard. So it's an illusionary space between ourselves and others, brought about by the belief in separation. So when we were here, we were in oneness. There wasn't a me and a you. There wasn't a me and a dog and a me and a car and a me and a something else. There was oneness. When we chose for separation, we had the thought of, gosh, I wonder what it would be like if I could be God. That kind of hurled us over to this different experience that again is the opposite of what this is. And with that, we immediately began to feel guilt, sin, and fear because we thought we did something to God that was so horrific that he would never allow us to come and return back home. So we have this guilt, sin, and fear and terror. And one of the ways I think is helpful to imagine this is if you were in a spaceship and you had your spacesuit on and you were roaming around outside of the spaceship, and as long as your umbilical cord was attached, you could breathe and you have connection with the ship and all that kind of stuff. But think about when this moment occurred, somebody cut the umbilical cord and suddenly we were hurled into absolute positive stark darkness with no connection to, in our experience, anything to hold on to. So you can imagine how horrific, horrible, terrifying that experience would have been. And so we now were afraid to go back to God because we thought we did something bad to God by leaving him. So we were afraid to go back to God, but we had this guilt, sin, and fear and terror in our minds, and we couldn't tolerate that. So the way we basically solved that problem was we projected the guilt, sin, and fear into something outside of me. So you might want to think of it as if your English teacher says, I want you to go home this weekend and write a story about a story about good and bad, innocent victim, perpetrator, and then come back next week and we'll talk about your story. Well, in that story, there's going to be a character that's the innocent victim, moi, and then there's going to be all the other characters on the outside that are going to be the perpetrators. Only what the perpetrators really represent is what's in my mind. Now I see it out here. I disengage from it and I don't think it is me any longer because now there's two characters. And then we draw a line here, forgetting that we were the ones that wrote this script based on the guilt, sin, and fear that's in our mind. We project it out here, and now we see it on the screen of life. Now the problem with this is we continue to hold the blueprint of this guilt, sin, and fear. So every time one of these perpetrators shows up, and a perpetrator can be a person, it could be your car not starting this morning, it could be your body falling apart, it can be anything, it could be my nail getting cracked, it can be literally anything that takes my peace away. And the way this is set up is we now only remember the square. So literally, I popped into the world as an innocent victim. I didn't ask to be born. It was something my parents did, and I showed up. And I'm, literally an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control. So we play this part of being an innocent victim, but the perpetrators keep showing up in our lives. And the perpetrator, again, is anything that would take my peace away. And we constantly believe unequivocally in the way we understand this process that this character or this thing is the problem that's taking my peace away. But in truth, when this character pokes me with their experience that they present to me, what's really happening is it's triggering the memory in my mind of this belief system that I hold that I'm unconsciously aware, not consciously aware of. So what we constantly do in the world is try to make this person do something different. We tell them all the rules and regulations about what they need to do so I'll be okay. But the bottom line is, let's say this was a neighbor and I couldn't stand my neighbor, so I move away from my neighbor. I move into a new house like the new neighbors. But somehow, some way, another character is going to show up and take the place of my neighbor, because it's not the neighbor that's the problem. It's the projection from my mind showing up on my screen that is actually causing the experience of me losing my peace. So though we are going to use this character to be the reminder that my peace can be disturbed, we don't leave it there. We eventually practice and come to the realization, if my peace can be taken away, it's not really about them, it's about what I'm holding in my mind. And what I'm holding in my mind is a belief against the love of God. So when it says this illusionary space between ourselves and others brought about by the belief in separation, this is what we believe about ourselves when we believe we left God. Now, the Course has got this other little idea where it basically says, in truth, you never left home. But it also explains we don't believe that because obviously we believe the lie, we believe the separated experience, and the Course says in many places it's not real, but we believe it's real. And just like if we did go to a movie theater and we sat there for 2 hours watching a movie, for those 2 hours, we get very engaged in that movie. We may laugh, we may cry, we may fall off our chair, we might, whatever, we might hate the movie, we might love the movie. While we're in the context of that movie, it seems very solid, very real, and it can bring up emotions, fears, concepts, ideas, you name it. And we all know, intellectually, we all know when I go to the movie theater, Tom Hanks or whoever the movie stars I'm watching aren't there. They're not real. This is a depiction of a story that's coming from the projector. And quite literally, that's what's going on all day long in all our encounters and everything that happens in our world. Now, that's a wonderful concept, but we have spent our entire lives in this little square believing unequivocally that I'm an innocent victim of the circumstances that occur in my world. And for us to begin to retrain our thinking, retrain our mind to, okay, if this can disturb my peace, it has to mean that my mind is awry. And if I want to experience peace, I have to be willing to recognize that's in my mind and then learn to drop it and choose for the Holy Spirit. All right, so in this space arises the dreams of sickness and hate, since projection must always follow a belief in separation. So I have this little chart that depicts all the many ways that in the space our dreams arise. And some of our dreams are positive dreams, some of them are very heavy negative dreams, but everything in the dream is all coming from that projection and that belief that the gap is real. Okay, and as we progress in the process and the training and the practice of the Course, the solidness, the solidity of the gap begins to kind of diminish, where things within the world aren't going to take your peace away like they have always done. You're not going to be pulled into the dream quite as strongly, or even if you are pulled in, you aren't going to stay there as long, until eventually we will come to a moment where no longer does any dream hold me in the separated experience. I will completely be aligned with what truth is. Okay, again, lots of words. Does anybody have anything they want to comment about or question before we go on?
Yes, I would like to, Andrea. So when our whole point then is to rejoin with God, to become one with God.
Correct.
And we can't do that by we can't just do that on our own. We can't just rejoin with God, say, okay, today I'm going to rejoin with God, forget all this, give up your life. We can't just do that because on our own, because we're embodied by the ego.
Correct.
We're embedded in the ego, and everything that we think has to do with our ego of saving ourselves, that meaning saving our bodies. And okay, so then I'm thinking, so then that's the whole point, though, is to rejoin with God. Absolutely. The whole point of the book is to rejoin with God. And then would it be accurate to say the only way we can do that is to use the bridge of the Holy Spirit in our mind?
According to the Course, that is correct. Now, there's other philosophies out there that may climb this mountain from a different direction, and their their storyline per se of healing will look very different than the Course. But from the perspective of the Course, absolutely correct. And we're either in the separated state or we're in the oneness state. And again,
and because we're so embedded or embodied by the ego, or the ego is embodied by us, there's no direct way that it's almost like the all the entryways to God have been stopped by everything that our bodies look at and experience.
yes. And let me just
that is what you need to do, is get rid of the ego, everything in the world.
well, ultimately that's correct, Bob.
Right.
But
Isn't the point, Marianne, isn't the point to recognize that we're already one with God?
well,
Not to join with God, because that still implies we're separate from God.
right. I would say the words you just used are correct. And understand, I'm going to use this little chart. Think about this is the ego. It's a big cloud covering the sun. And a couple days ago in Cleveland, if you happened to be in Cleveland at that time, it was dark literally all day long. It never got light the entire day. Well, that's kind of how we are as identified with the ego. Now, behind the cloud, the Holy Spirit or truth is there. And we are part of this. It's just when we covered it over with this thought system, which was a false thought system, which we identified with, despite the fact that the sun, which is what I am, is there all the time. As long as I'm focusing on the ego or the belief of separation, I am only going to experience what this shows me. So the process is to become aware of what the ego is all about, why we chose it, and finding tools or ways to kind of push the ego away so we can access what we always really were.
And what you will like about the world and what you hate about the world keeps drawing you back to the world. So you got to leave the world, go.
Correct. But I would say, though that's absolutely correct, and that is the end result of this process, the Course is not actually asking us to give up stuff in the world per se. It's asking us to look at how attached to the world you are. Observe yourself. Oh, look, I want that new car. I think if I get that new car, everything's going to be wonderful and I'll be happy. I get the new car, and in a week, I'm looking for something else that I think I need to have to fill me up to make me feel okay.
But that's the process of leaving go.
That's a process. But the reason why I want to be very specific with this is there are people that will say, well, I'm going to get rid of all my stuff. I'm going to just live off the land, or I'm going to do whatever, some form of minimalizing our experience on the planet. And they're going to find out that they're just as enmeshed in the ego as somebody that has a lot of things, because it's coming from our mind. And what needs healed is our connection with the thought system of choosing for the ego versus the thought system of oneness. And, we're going to experiment, obviously, with stuff in the world. And I think as our mind becomes more and more healed, our attraction to the stuff of the world starts to just fall away, because I don't need to fill myself up any longer, because I'm being filled up by my connection with the oneness instead.
But you have to leave go of the world, then not. You don't look at that as something bad.
Right, or loss, right.
It becomes natural. You automatically don't want it anymore.
Absolutely.
That is leaving the world go. With leaving the world go without any sacrifice.
Correct. Yes. And, be very aware, we're pretty addicted to the sacrifice concept on this planet.
Right.
So a lot of times people will interject a sacrificial experience around the Course, where Jesus is extremely, extremely clear that this is not a course on sacrifice. When you want the love of God more than you want this, it'll be yours. If I'm pretending that I want the love of God more than this, it's going to backfire, and I will find out.
Well, it seems like it seems like on the face of it, you could just change your mind and say, that's it. I don't like how this feels now. I want to join with God.
Yep.
So I want to know, by joining, I mean become aware that I'm already joined with God. And by doing those things, or giving up your cars, or giving up all those things, that doesn't happen. That isn't the natural flow of how you rejoin with God according to the Course.
Right.
That even though you're already joined with God, you don't experience it that way.
Correct. And that's why the Course specifically states near the beginning of the Course that we don't want to pretend we're not here. We're not going to pretend we don't have a body. We're going to use our body in our relationship with what comes into interface with my body in regard to my daily life experiences, to then recognize, oh, I just stubbed my toe. Oh man, I sure feel like I'm a body. That hurts, that's in pain. Well, that's a moment to recognize, wow, I'm identified with my body. And then go through the process of, okay, that has to mean I'm identified with my ego mindset, and I can drop that if I want and align with this. But if I just pretend, oh, that doesn't bother me, this isn't a problem, I'm just denying the very classroom that I have available to me in the process of doing the Course.
Well, and also that you say, well, I'm one with God, so nothing's going to bother me. That's kind of like the thing that the ego. I mean, that's still the ego saying, well, you can say that all you want.
Absolutely.
But until you really have to go through where you don't feel like you are one with God, and that, I guess, that feels like you're wrong, from another point of view. It feels like you're wrong because you're not doing it right, or you're not thinking of it right. It feels like you're, and that kind of fosters that idea that the world is wrong and God is right. And if you just say, I'm going to hang with God, that isn't, well, it's just about using the world, because we're kind of stuck with it. We're stuck with how we're in this body and we have these things to cope with, and then asking to see it a different way, asking to use it a different way, is very it's a very puzzling thing, even when you want to get along, even when you want to be using the Holy Spirit, even when you want to rejoin with God, it can really be a tricky situation in some of the simplest things, how it works. And I remember, well, when my mother passed away last year, there was the whole thing, because we're Catholic, and my sister is a lot younger than I am, but she has a different relationship with our mother. And I was taught to love my sister unconditionally. And I guess I was trained that way by my family. And I didn't always feel certain things about it, but I said, no, I'm not going to let that be a problem. And it was so interesting, because in this simple thing, a difference of opinion came up, where, so my mother wanted a rosary in her hand in the casket, and my sister had the rosary and all that, but I got to the funeral home first, and the undertaker said to me, well, what do you want to do with that rosary? Do you want it out and want you to take it, or you want her to leave it in the casket? And my first thought was, well, why would you leave something like that in the casket? Nobody's going to use it. What's going on? I just said, no. I said, we'll take it home. And when my sister, and he assured me that it would be okay if it was buried, because it would be in the Catholic cemetery. So that would, the dirt in the Catholic cemetery was probably better than regular dirt in his mind. So then my sister came, and he asked her the same question, and she said, no, we're going to leave it with her. And I just kept my mouth shut. I didn't care. I mean, I really didn't care, but my opinion, I mean, even when you think you're not going to have an opinion and you're not going to fight about something, how interesting it is how the opinion comes right up. And then I had to ask the Holy Spirit, but I didn't. I mean, I was used to not fighting with my sister. I never fought with my sister. She's 10 years younger than me, and I never fought with her. And here we are at the, my mother's funeral. One of the worst things we were going through in terms of our family, and there was really a disagreement. But I asked the Holy Spirit, or I just sat on that. But how splintered all these little things get, even when you're trying to do the right thing, is interesting. Thank you.
Sure, and I would agree that some of these conflicts that come up are so simple, and yet they can cause some great pain. And I think one of the situations is, I know as you're training, as you explained, you were taught to always be nice to your sister, honor your mother and father, like the 10 Commandments and whatnot. And so we can fit into a pattern like that where we attempt to be a good person in the world because those are the rules and I want to follow the rules. But we're not really coming to that decision from a place of our heart. And from the Course, as you continue to offer it, I guess you could say offer it to the Holy Spirit, you're saying, I want you to show me how I can be in the presence of this without having this be a conflict or me sacrificing. And it's a whole different experience. You may do the same thing, you may say the same thing, act the same way, but you're coming from a totally different place within, because it's coming from that connection with love instead of the connection of separation.
Then you feel
it is the ego that wants to make this very complicated.
Yep.
It's really not that complicated.
Well,
it's hard, but not complicated.
Right, but the deal is, Bob, we're all addicted to our egos. So of course, to the ego, it's going to be hard.
Right.
If we didn't have any investment in the ego, doing the Course, we'd have been done a long time ago. We'd be dust in the road. But because we're so addicted, in fact, we don't even know how addicted we are.
How many people does anybody know that is enlightened? I don't think there's a whole lot of people out there that have met an enlightened person, one that is with God.
Yeah, probably not too many, but there
not
are.
Too many. Even Ken.
Right.
How long did he study this? And he helped Helen edit this book. He was very close to understanding this.
Even Helen, but she didn't.
Yeah, Helen and
yeah,
her friend. So to me, the idea that you can just by word join God, no, there has to be a condition.
Yep.
And we don't want to give up ourselves.
No, that's
the self is the big problem.
Yeah.
And probably I wouldn't even recognize anybody, who was there.
Well,
possibility.
Think about Jesus, then dying on the cross. I mean, he was love, and the opposite team, which was those identified with the ego, killed him off because he represented something in opposition to the belief system they carried. So let's say we were in a Saturday class at the church, and if Jesus walked in, most of us probably wouldn't like him because he would shine to us what we don't want to look at.
Right. That the ego has a terrific fear of love. Yeah. Does not want to be near the love.
Correct. And that's, again, a part of the challenges we are facing in the undoing process, is to become more and more aware that we are afraid of love, and that's a barrier that we've placed in front of God, and then we blame it on God, but it's really ourselves that have put it there and placed it there. So there's a lot that the Course is trying to introduce us to help us understand what we're up against and why we have chosen to place that in front of God.
And an enlightened being is no different than this book.
What was that?
An enlightened being is no different than this book.
Yeah.
It's not coming, that's just a symbol of my right mind.
Correct. Yeah.
And so obviously it's attainable
Yes.
because I'm seeing it. I'm reading this book. So this is in my right mind. It's coming from my right mind.
Right. And you picked up the book. Not
Yeah,
everybody out there has.
right, right. And to me, the main focus of this course is to look at the block. And there's only one block. It's ego.
Yep.
And I believe that that's real. The more I practice this, the more the course helps me see that this block, this obstacle is nothing. I'm not there yet. I've had a few experiences of it, but I'm to me that's the focal point of this course is to help me look at the ego thought system. I had an experience this week. I was watching my friend's two sons. They're both, one's 9, the other one's 10. And I was having a very stressful day. I still work from home. And the 9-year-old came in and said to me, "I'm just warning you that if I don't eat soon, there's going to be a problem." And my immediate reaction, and I didn't voice this, was,
I'll be good.
yes. But my immediate reaction was, who the hell do you think you're talking to, you little shit?
Mm-hmm.
And he walked out of the room, and I took a moment. What's happening here? I'm angry. What's happening here? All he's doing is he's giving me information. He needs to eat now. And I have no idea what his experience is. Maybe he's got low blood sugar. Maybe he's not, I have no clue. So once I calmed down, it took me a few minutes. I went out and I fixed him something to eat, and then I went back to my work. Nothing happened. This is not a problem. I'm making it a problem.
And understand that we are always consistently making problem of what we're experiencing, because the only way I can maintain myself as an innocent victim is if I have a problem that's outside of, or that appears to be outside of me. And we live and breathe literally to maintain a problem.
That my biggest problem is my body.
Yeah, today,
I think that I am the body.
Sure, that's huge, huge,
Right.
huge. Yeah, thinking we're the body, believing
Also-
bad, and a fear of God. Oh, you just wrap those in a package, and we got lots to work with. Go ahead. I heard
Like the
another.
analogy.
Shelley,
The analogy
Okay, go ahead.
one time was the monsters under the bed. That they're really not there, but you think there's really monsters in your bed, and your fear. Then if you do have the courage to look under really fast and nothing's there,
Absolutely.
it's the same. That reminds me of the same of the ego, kind of.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, and that's a really great parallel, because the course is really about looking. Become aware of what you think is the scary thing under the bed, or the curtains blowing in the wind. You think it's a ghost. If mom comes in, turns on the light, says, "Look, it's just a curtain." We're going to be a little bit more convinced that that's not what it is. Well, that's really what the course is doing. It's shining a light on what we hold near and dear as to what brings us fear and terror or whatever, and saying, but it's really nothing, guys. And we're not convinced of that quite yet. We're getting there, but we're not convinced of it yet.
And I think it's also helpful to, for me in this particular instant, I was upset before he came in the room.
Good point, yes.
So he's not my problem.
Correct.
I projected that onto him, and I watched that, I looked at that. And then afterward, later that day, or maybe early the next morning, it was like, I came into this situation with this anger, with this upset,
Correct.
That, you know, I think it's so important to see that, because the choice for the ego comes first.
Yeah.
Then, you know, whatever the reaction, the projection is next.
Good point, and I'm glad you brought that out, Rose, because that's so important. The problem is in the mind. There's somehow a disruption or a realization, I'm afraid of love, and then we find a something, and we go, oh, that's the one, and that could be the little boy that, you know, wants his food now. It doesn't matter, and that's the other thing that's so helpful as we move along in the course, is it doesn't matter which one of these things disturb my peace. What matters is my peace has been disturbed, and if my peace has been disturbed, it's a reminder I'm identified with my ego. And then it's not good or bad, and I don't have to judge myself or attack myself. Just simply realize, oh, I'm identified with the ego. And now, because I understand the course, I can do something about that.
Can I say,
It's helpful
hello?
information.
One sec, Beata. Go ahead, Rose.
It's helpful information.
Oh, hugely helpful information.
That, I think that was the aspect for me in this particular instant, was I didn't feel guilty about having that reaction. It was just, this is helpful information.
I have a question for Rose.
Go ahead.
If the boy had come in and said, you know, I'm really hungry, would you fix me a sandwich? Would that have been better?
I don't know. I might have been, are you serious? I'm right in the middle of all this, you know, work. I mean, because like I had said before, I came in, before he came in the door, I was upset. I was angry. So I think even if he had said it in a different way, I probably would have had the same reaction.
And I think, and I'm going to get you in a second, Beata, I think it's important that we recognize, and there's a line in the course that really describes this or talks about this, that it's not that you aren't going to react like Rose did, or any one of us would in any particular situation, if you don't stay there.
Right.
And
yeah.
Rose was able to kind of regroup forces and realize that, okay, that's not who I want to be. And then calm, you know, center herself, calm down, and then go take care of business, go back to work, and everything's fine. And that's part of the process of working the course. It's not that you will never have that. In fact, the course says here in many places, you're going to continue to have that. You're identified with your ego. It can't be any other way.
Yeah.
And when you're identified with the ego, this is what's running the show.
Yep.
But we're being asked to look at it and realize, oh, there I go again. Is that really what I want to perpetuate?
And interestingly enough, after he had eaten, he came back into, I'm in a spare room working, and he came up to me and he goes, "Are you okay?"
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
But that, even that, and again, it's subtle. It's not like this big, huge, you know, you just won $1 million kind of thing. But those are moments that you know what a difference this course begins to make in your life and the unfolding of your life. And those are just so gorgeous and beautiful. Okay, B, it's your turn.
Oh, all I wanted to say was to bring it down to even the simplest level is the only problem is that I believe I have a problem.
Well, yeah,
That
you can add to that, I think I am.
Yeah, right, yeah, but.
Yeah, I know, we're right.
Okay, never mind.
No problem. Okay. Whew. All right, so we're back to paragraph 11, line 4. The gap between reality and dreams lies not between the dreaming of the world and what you dream in secret. And what that means is what we dream in secret is we believe we've separated from the love of God. So that's our secret. We project that secret into the world outside, into something or somebody else so that we can play the part of an innocent victim. These are all connected. This is cause or the projector. This is the effect, what you see on the screen. They're connected. And when he says, and dreams lie not between the dreaming and the world and what you dream in secret, because this is cause, this is effect. It's automatic. Just like when you align with truth, that's the cause, and the effect will be a reflection of love versus a projection of guilt, sin, and fear that comes automatically from this. And he goes on to say, they are one, cause and effect. Movie projector, what's shown on the screen. They are one. The dreaming of the world is but a part of your own dream you gave away. I took this dream of being separate and I gave it away to something outside of me. It's not mine now. I gave it away, but it remains a blueprint in our minds. And saw as if it were its start and ending both. So it now appears to be on the outside, and it's not something that I did. Because I take on this character of me, and I look at you as something separate, a gap between us, and you're the problem, not me. Yet was it started by your secret dream. In other words, what set this into motion was the secret dream that we believed, and this was collectively as one son, we believed we separated from God because we had the thought of, I wonder what it would be like if I was God, okay? Which you do not perceive, although it's caused the part you see, and do not doubt it's real. So now we believe it's real. I don't remember the connection with the fact that I projected it into the world, because we drew this nice little line that says, I will forget this and I will remain here in time and space, and I will really believe I'm an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control. And if all these idiots would leave me alone, including that little kid that wants his breakfast or whatever meal he wanted to eat, now, it doesn't matter what it looks like, big or small, they all encompass and project, they're a projection of what is being held in my mind. How could you doubt it while you're asleep? In other words, we are asleep in this dream, thinking that's all there is, that I'm an innocent victim of as an effect of somebody else or something else, and I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do about it. And the dream in secret, I better abstract that all over. How could you doubt it while you lie asleep and dream in secret that its cause is real? So we believe the cause is that, and we do believe this is real. This is what's taking my peace away. We never, in our fondest dreams, ever realized it was the thought in the mind that projected into the world, I guess you could say, manifesting this dream where I play the part of an innocent victim and you play the part of a perpetrator. Okay, so it's a setup. And we have been stuck in this setup since the Big Bang, and it's been reinforced ever since then. So as we begin to understand the Course more and more, it's going to take some practice for us to continue to recognize and not fall into the trap of the pattern that we're in, and go to the source and then shift the source. It's going to take some time for us to learn how to do this. And, I've always thought it was pretty interesting that Jesus called this a Course in Miracles, because he knows within the context of our world, everything we've ever learned has come from doing something and then, taking the next step and then using what we learned from this first step and applying it to the second till we finally accomplish whatever learning process we want to accomplish. Well, the same thing applies here. You're going to open the book and go, what in the world is that talking about? But you're going to be called by your heart to what's beyond the words, which will keep calling you to study it or come to classes or do whatever you do to work on the Course, and still in a great deal of bewilderment. And then you start to understand it a little bit and it makes more sense, and then you begin to catch it more frequently when you start to fall into the trap. Because I'm sure with Rose's story 5 years ago, if that identical situation was being played out, would be highly unlikely that Rose would come to the same response by the end of the day. It would have been, I'm justified to yell at this sucker and leave me alone and we're all done here. And he would go with his tail between his legs and feel bad all the rest of the day, or whatever the unfolding that might have brought. And as we become more and more conscious, we have more and more of ability to do something different by recognizing what the ego is up to. All right, any comments before I go to the next paragraph?
Just thinking that with Rose, that child would not have learned kindness. He would have learned, he wouldn't have the opportunity to teach what she had learned. He would have learned more anger instead.
Right.
So that was the miracle, and that was the time that was the place out of time,
Right.
where the healing took place. So there wasn't we're not waiting for the second coming. We're not waiting to be thoroughly enlightened, because if we get it once, we get it. We've been enlightened. There's no problem here except the one that I'm making. And then to respond then from the Holy Spirit's idea is the rejoining, is the point where we rejoin with God in that moment.
Right.
And that's the miracle.
And in essence, at that moment, Rose closed the gap. She didn't see her brother as separate from her. She wanted to see her brother as the same as herself. And understand that when we've chosen for the separation, we are literally making our brother separate from ourselves, because we're living in a thought system of separation. When Rose was able to drop that and refocus and reconnect, what she literally was doing was stepping over here, where now she could see her brother the same as her instead of different than her. And she didn't have to make him the bad guy so she could be okay, which is literally the price we pay by having chosen for the separated aspect of our experience. All right, let's go on to paragraph number 12. A brother separated from yourself, an ancient enemy, a murderer who stalks you in the night and plots your death, yet plans that it be lingering and slow, of this you dream. Yet underneath this dream is yet another, in which you become the murderer, the secret enemy, the scavenger, and the destroyer of your brother and the world alike. Here is the cause of suffering, the space between your little dreams and your reality. The little gap you do not even see, the birthplace of illusions and of fear, the time of terror and of ancient hate, the instant of disaster, all are there, or all are here. Here is the cause of unreality, and it is here that it will be undone. Before I go into the line by line with that paragraph, I want to piggyback on something in regard to the story with Rose and what Andrea also commented on as well. Normally in a dualistic confrontation, it's all about kill or be killed. I'm going to get you before you get me, and I'm going to, they're going to try to do the very same thing, which is try to get me instead of me getting them. That's the modem of the ego thought system. It is kill or be killed. Let's keep this going. The moment that Rose was able to stop that or interrupt that flow, even for a second, she allowed an opportunity where it looked like this instead of this, where the mortar could just flow into that relationship instead of two bricks gnarling each other. And literally, we are going to do this for ourselves, but the result of that, and we spoke earlier, a couple of people mentioned the idea of when you give a gift in the world, now I don't have the gift. But when we do this for ourselves, we are also offering that love to a brother that has been told since their choice for separation that they're a piece of shit, or as the course, that one workbook lesson, I think I am the home of evil, sin, and darkness. And if you knew who I was, you would recoil as though I was a snake. And that's internally the thought and the belief that we all hold about ourselves. And that's why when someone disturbs our peace or tells us they don't like us or they look at us funny or whatever experience in the world might show up, that we cringe and we want to kill them because we think it was them that caused my disruption of peace or feeling good about myself. But in truth, all they did was scrape off a little bit of a layer of the memory in my mind of what I really think about myself, because I believe I did something so horrible of killing off God to exist in a dualistic experience. So I'm really not only offering healing to myself, I am expressing that awareness of healing to my brother automatically. It's not like I have to go from door to door and tell them all about the Course. It's I'm living that Course, and then I become a natural expression of it, because you'll be on this side expressing and reflecting only love. So it's a very beautiful unfolding experience, and the more that we have the reflection of that love, the more you're going to want to choose for truth instead of separation, because it's so heartwarming for yourself and the expression in the world. But it's not you that does it. It is you that gets out of the way to allow it to flow through you. Okay, so line 1 in paragraph 12. A brother separated from yourself, an ancient enemy. So our brother has to be an ancient, or excuse me, yes, our brother becomes an ancient enemy, because if there's two, we're always in competition. And my job is that I win the battle instead of them. And we know that some relationships in our world are a lot more, I'm going to call them loving, than other ones. You know, some people you just know they're an idiot and we just drop it with that. But then we have something called special love relationships, which are people that we come together with. But even in the relationship with the people that are special love relationships, we butt heads a lot. We have issues, we have irritations. You know, your sister, an example of Andrea, you know, we get along okay, but then she wants the rosary beads, I don't want the rosary, you know, that kind of thing, where things keep coming up, because even special love relationships, from the perspective of the Course, are hiding this thought system that is very much intact in our minds. And real quickly for Sophia, the Course would explain that it was one Son of God that left home, and at one point we were all collectively part of that one. But when we came into the world, we splintered out into many, many pieces and parts, and that literally every single one of the pieces and parts has a part of the mind that is identified with the separation and a part of the mind that's identified with truth. So we are all specifically and within our own way and time frame going to come to a place of finding our way back to oneness. Even though ultimately we are all one, since we believe we're splintered into many, many different parts, each of us has both of those parts of our mind available to us. And one of the benefits of studying the Course is for us to become aware that we do have that other thought system. I don't have to stay in the separated experience forever, and I don't have to wait for this person to do something different so I'll be okay. I now begin to understand there is a way out of this, and I have that ability to make those choices and changes if and when I'm ready to do so. So a brother separated from yourself, an ancient enemy, a murderer who stalks you in the night and plots your death, yet plans that it be lingering and slow, of this you dream. And, you know, whether it's a physical person in your life that may be described this way, or if you turn on the news and you watch, you know, a depiction or a story about someone being raped and that affects you, that's all a projection of this thought system being presented to you that makes you feel bad or makes you feel like an innocent victim of circumstances beyond your control. And what the Course is saying is all of this is a dream coming from the mind of the Son of God who identified with the ego and forgot who he really was. And again, we're starting to learn that there is another option. I can drop my investment in dreaming a dream of the opposition to God, and I can now choose to realign with truth. And that's what the Course is leading us towards. Yet underneath this dream is yet another in which you become the murderer, the secret enemy, the scavenger, and the destroyer of your brother and the world alike. And this is a part that for many of us is very challenging, especially when we first start reading the Course. Because the way this is set up is I'm the innocent victim, the perpetrators are the problem. And I really don't want to look at how often, how frequently, how subtly I'm the murderer just as much as this character is. I want to be lily white and make sure there's somebody outside of me that's not so white as I am, even though I have a few flaws. So a lot of the practice of the Course is for us to gently begin to look at how many times and how many ways I am attacking, how many ways I am not loving. I may not speak those words, but what are the thoughts that keep popping up in my mind when situations occur in my world that disturb my peace? And something just real basic is you're driving down the street, someone cuts you off, and those thoughts go on in your, the flags are bouncing in your head, where if you're really honest, you want to kill them because they almost killed you. And so we need to become hyper vigilant of those moments where, if we're really honest with ourselves, the last thing in the world that's coming up in my mind is a thought of love. Because it's when I realize I'm not coming from love that I can make a change. As long as I think I'm the wonderful one and everybody else is, the bad one, I'm not going to be willing to look deep enough to use the process of the Course to heal.
That is what I try to do. If somebody cuts me off, is that I bless them, and that seemed to put my mind in an altogether different place, because I realize I probably cut people off too, and I don't even realize it.
Right.
And they don't realize it either.
Exactly. But what the Course is saying is you want to look at the experience you have in that second where this comes in. Now, Bob, you've come to a point where you can now shift that pretty quickly. But we really want to recognize and become fine-tuned with the subtleties and ways that our peace can be disrupted. And we don't want to kind of skim over those, because we have to recognize that's what I want to maintain my innocent victim character, and I have to make somebody else guilty to play that game.
Right. That I'm also aware that sometimes that Pat can do something that makes me upset, and then she can do the exact same thing some other time, and I'm not upset at all.
Correct.
Even though it's the same thing. Why is that?
Well,
I want her to be guilty.
Correct. And just like Rose said before the little guy came into her room, she was already upset, and what she was doing was looking for a specific in the world to blame it on. And those words are actually described in the Course. I'm not going to go there right now, but it's like we have the fear or the remembrance of guilt or fear or in our mind, then we point to something, and then we blame it on the something. Only it's really not about the something. But we're so good at playing that game that we do it quite frequently and quite unconsciously.
Marianne.
Go ahead.
I wanted to share something.
Sure.
It's sort of aligned with what Bob and Rose have been talking about. There's a sign on my refrigerator that says, "You're not my problem, I'm my problem."
Amen.
Sometimes I ignore that, but sometimes, I pay attention to it. I overheard a conversation earlier this week, just two people talking, and it just set off, flags, lights, reactions, triggers, all kinds of fun stuff like that. similar to what Rose was saying. Like, no, I'm sorry, you are the problem. So I know I've mentioned in the group before that one of the ways that I process is to sit down and write. And I thought, I'd better do this because I don't like where my mind is going. You may also remember a week or so ago, this course is about our thoughts. And a friend of ours who studies the course relayed an expression that he had learned someplace else about, waking up in the morning and the vultures are on the headboard. And the vultures are just our thoughts. But I've been working with the vultures, and one showed up as I was writing. And I've been making friends with them rather than trying to fight them as the other. And it looked at me and it said, "You're dead meat." And it's like Rose's meat sack. I'm not a body. This is not a body. This is dead meat. And I thought, well, now, isn't that interesting? What can I do for you? And again, last week we talked about making it about the other. So I'm having this conversation with this vulture while I'm writing. And what happened was I invited him in. He's a vulture. He eats dead meat. I became his food. We were one. And that was it. That was it. There was a
Fight is over.
Yeah. What problem?
Yep. And it's the identification with the me that causes the resistance to allow the oneness to be experienced. Yeah. All right. Keep on working with that. and again, these are the kinds of things as we keep practicing and we keep experimenting, we keep working the course, ideas are going to kind of bubble up to the surface where that's an example or a way that I can play with the course to understand it on a deeper and a deeper level. And we're going to find a lot of things about ourselves we were totally oblivious to because we didn't want to look at them. I mean, we've spent literally since the Big Bang, our goal has been to be the innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control. So when we start to shift this in the opposite direction, it's going to be a painful journey, only because we're so addicted to aligning with this. It's much easier to say the vulture's the problem, not me. And I don't care if it's a physical vulture or a person or a situation or an experience. I don't want to be the one that's responsible for this. And I think it's important, having just said that what we've done is made this guy the bad guy. So oftentimes when we start with the course, we then make me the bad guy because it says I'm responsible for what I see. So we think, okay, well, I'm going to shift this over to here, which I'm guessing is a step that almost all of us will go through. But the understanding is none of this is real. It's all coming from here. And ultimately, this isn't real either. So we don't want to get stuck in that part too long because that's not really beneficial for our understanding of the process. But to become aware of whatever bubbles up to play with. And lots of things will bubble up. All righty, so line number, all right, so basically line 1 and 2 here is saying, sometimes my brother's going to play the attacking part, sometimes I'm going to be the one that's playing the attacking part. It's part of the dream that we've chosen to identify with. And in the dream we've chosen to identify, it's based on guilt, sin, and fear, kill or be killed. And there is separation and there's 2 of us. And if one of us is going to win, it's darn well going to be me. That's the mindset that this entire dream has been, the focal point of it. And, in this chart here, and I'm the hero of the dream. I'm the center focus. So it's the world evolving around me and I've got to protect me. And to put down our defenses and let the Holy Spirit see it, or let us see through his eyes what we set up from a different perspective, will bring us closer and closer to the healing experience. All right, so here is the cause of suffering: the space between your little dreams and reality. Now that doesn't make sense without the last line. Yet underneath this dream is yet another, in which you become a murderer, the secret enemy, the scavenger, and the destroyer of your brother and the world alike. Here is the cause of suffering: the space between your little dreams and your reality. So basically, the problem isn't my brother. The problem isn't that I'm going to murder my brother, or that my brother's going to murder me. The problem is we believe in separation, because in oneness, there's nobody to argue with. We're done. It's only in duality that any of this possibility could come to the surface. And we really want to come to the realization that we're playing in a gap that isn't real. The little gap you do not even see, because all we see is what's on the outside. And we are so majorly addicted, and the only way we've ever viewed the world is through, I'm the innocent victim hero, and everybody else is doing this to me. That's the way it's set up. It's just automatic. Just like if you go to the doctor and they hit you on the knee with a little hammer, your leg's going to kick up, because that's how the mind of a Son of God who is chosen for the ego is programmed to be, experience, and react in the world. So the little gap you do not even see, the birthplace of illusion and fear, the time of terror and of the ancient hate, the instant of disaster, are all here. So what that basically means is we now have no remembrance of the fact that it was the Son of God who chose to separate from love. And we have no remembrance that we then projected the guilt, sin, and fear out into the world so that we could play a part of an innocent victim. We're not aware of that. There's no way within the context of this square that information is available to us. Okay, we're kind of lost in the middle of nowhere. And so the Course is basically, taking off the veils. And each time one of these lines is created, we forget another layer of what took place to bring us to where we are. When we were here and we chose, when we had that moment of, I wonder what it would be like if I separated from love and I could be God, we then looked at these two. We were afraid to go back to God. So we were held in a place with guilt, sin, and fear. So we remained there, and then we drew a line and forgot that God existed. And then when we were here, we then projected into the world, made everybody else the problem, and me the innocent victim, and then we drew another line. So all we know is this box. And quite literally, the moment we were born, we popped into this box with absolutely no awareness of anything beyond or outside of the box. So
I think the Course says that we came here to be a victim.
Absolutely. That's the setup. That's the way we solve the problem. Yes.
I've been in the Course for all these years, and still I find myself being the victim. I say, hey, look, you're being the victim again. You are not the victim.
Yeah. And
I made the choice.
Correct. And we have to understand, guys, that this has been going on since the Big Bang. We've reinforced this over and over and over and over and over and over. And, some of us, to whatever degree, are starting to practice what the Course is saying. But there's still a huge investment in this thought system. So as you said, I've been in the Course a long time, and, I'm recognizing that I've been an innocent victim, and I'm still an innocent victim a lot of times.
Right.
But slowly, it's going to begin to dissipate.
Well, you have to be the victim until you understand why you're not.
Correct.
That's what the course teaches. That's what the course says. That's why we feel so victimized, because we've done it to ourselves, and this is how. And then to see how to manage it, and then not feel like the victim. Like, fine, you wake up to that. Well, I'm not the victim here. My sister and I just have a different opinion. And if I choose to make an issue out of that, where do I go?
Right.
Maybe I'm right. I mean, when I get to thinking I'm right, I get humorous and cute about it. I say funny things in my mind, and then I go, well, that's not going to get it.
I think it's helpful to realize that I'm both.
Correct.
I'm the victim,
Yes.
and I'm the victimizer.
Right.
So I love it. I use this a lot in my mind, Marianne, of your analogy of the sandbox. Oddly enough, I had a very large sandbox when I was a kid, and I was in it a lot. So I can really picture myself there with the two characters. And I believe I'm this character, but I'm both.
Yep. And
Not Rose.
No, we're not Rose. And I think a lot of the process of the course is observing from here at the Rose. And when you're observing, you're not the Rose. Before that, we spent most of our time identifying with the Rose part of ourselves. Unbeknownst to us, that there was another part of my mind that could be observing this. And the more we can observe Rose in the sandbox, acting like a good little ego, and attacking and stealing sand and throwing in somebody's eyes, or whatever it is we do, without judging ourselves, we're really in the healing process.
Yeah, I loved what Helene described with the vulture.
Yes.
I watched a video this week where a guy was being interviewed, and he was talking about he was in the car driving, and he was sad, and it started, this incredible sadness started to come up, and he said, for the first time in my life, I decided I was just going to allow this. And he pulled off on the side of the road, and this sadness just came up, and it was allowed. And he said it was met with this incredible joy that he had never experienced before.
Beautiful.
And I think that's exactly what Helene was talking about. I meet this anger, I meet this pain, whatever it is, I meet it with an understanding.
Yes. And
not me. I'm not doing it.
Right.
That's very important to point out. I'm not talking about me.
No. And I can remember years ago, long before I was in the course, going to a class, and the fellow said, the problem is, I think I am this thing, and stuff comes, and I immediately resist it and push it away. And if we could allow it to just come and pass through us, it would just leave. But every time we resist it, we're actually making it more solid, and we're keeping ourselves from healing from it. And yet, again, we're so addicted to resistance and discomfort in our experience that we oftentimes do push it away. But when we can sit with it, then it just flows through and goes somewhere else.
Yeah. If I see somebody doing something that I don't like and it makes me upset, that's me.
Absolutely. It's all you. There isn't nobody not
Right.
you.
And that's what I need to work with.
That's what we need to work with, yes.
It's willingness.
Yes. Allowance, it's an allowing of just, this is, I'm angry. This is where I'm at. Can I allow the anger?
Yes. And again, even the Bible talks about resist not evil, because when you resist something, you're actually giving it more power. And what the Course is saying is, look at what an ego does. The ego's made of this. The ego is not made of love. Watch carefully. You're not going to see love here. You're going to have some false pretenses of love maybe, but watch the ego in all its glory, but watch it from here without judgment or condemnation. because then
It's a
you
trick
go past
without
the truth.
judgment.
Yeah.
Without judgment.
That
That,
takes another layer of
right,
practice.
right,
I'm
right.
very well aware. But that's our ultimate goal. And, I give the example of if you have a hot air balloon out in your backyard, every single time you blow air into it, it's starting to increase in size and in size. And, it's still not flying above the earth, but you're doing absolutely everything you need to do to fill up that balloon, to take it to a point where it does rise above and take off. But you might get it so it's all full, but it's still tied down. And eventually we're going to cut each one of those strings, and then it literally will be above the battleground, and we can, be separated from it, where we can literally look without judgment or condemnation, because we're no longer attached to the character called me. But again, that is a process. And, from our experience, a kind of long process, but it's only a process because we have invested so deeply in the thought system of the ego. There's a place that says, if you really wanted love more than you wanted anything else, poof, you'd be there.
Well, some people say that we've had thousands of lifetimes. That means thousands of lifetimes in the ego. Think of that, thousands.
Well, probably more than thousands, Bob.
That's with an S.
Yes.
So that shows you how deep that is.
But think, I mentioned earlier, this whole thought system started at the Big Bang. That was a long time ago. And it's been reinforced ever since. And as you said, I've been in the course a long time. I'm still having some problems. Well, 30 years or 40 years of being in the course compared to eons of time, still a little out of balance. But you are filling up the balloon, and eventually it will take off.
I like that.
Okay.
Marianne?
Yeah, go ahead.
Remember when you said the dream is like when you're dreaming?
Lucid dreaming?
What's that?
Lucid dreaming?
Lucid dreaming, right. And then our life as we think is real, is that like floating above in a hot air balloon is when you know you're dreaming when you're awake?
Yes. It's like
kind of the same
thing. It's almost like you're still observing the play as it takes place, but you're now more in the audience, just observing it instead of being part of it. And so it doesn't come in, it doesn't affect you, it doesn't take your peace away as it did when you were very connected with being the character. And again, this, as Rose often points out, this isn't Marianne that's doing this. It's Marianne that's getting out of the way, which allows this new way of seeing to come forth. And it's a process that very gently unfolds, because if it happened too quickly, it would bring us deeper into the fear factor. And so it just unfolds seemingly slower than I think it should, but really in line with where my progression of healing would not bring me more fear.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah, wow, that's good.
Sure. Okay, so the little gap I'm going to read that one again. The little gap you do not even see, so we don't understand that this is an effect of the cause in our mind, where the birthplace of illusions and fear, the time of terror and of ancient hate, the instant of disaster are all here. So they're not here, they're in this thought. And there's a place in the Course where it basically says there was a moment when all of the world, all possibilities of the separation took place in one instant. And so when he's saying all of them are here, that's what it means. And it says, here is the cause of unreality. Again, unreality, the cause is here, not here. This is just the projection of the unreality. So we need to go to where the cause is in order for it to be healed. And as he says in line 6, and it is here that it will be undone. It will never be undone as long as we're still playing in this avenue, I guess you could say, because the problem doesn't lie here. And, again, a lot of the understanding and the practice of the course is to get this concept, because again, everything in the world says, no, 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 I was fine till that person cut me off. It has to be that person that cut me off that's the problem. And logically, within the context of the world, 100%, that is our experience. And it's almost like we have to hold a little door open in our mind that keeps reminding us, but wait a minute, the course is telling me this is not where the problem lies. It is with the cause in our mind. So what I'm going to do now is kind of shift gears. We're going to come back to where we are in that section in another time, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about the concept of the gap. So I have a couple of quotes around the gap idea. So if anybody wants to go into the text, it would be on text 602, paragraph 7. All right, so line 1. You who believe there is a little gap between you and your brother, do not see that it is here you are as prisoners in a world perceived to be existing here. The world you see does not exist because the place where you perceive it is not real. The gap is carefully concealed in fog, and misty pictures rise to cover it with vague, uncertain forms and changing shapes, forever unsubstantial and unsure. Yet in the gap is nothing, and there are no awesome secrets and no dark tombs where terror rises from the bones of death. Look at the little gap and you behold the innocence and emptiness of sin that you will see within yourself when you have lost the fear of recognizing love. So, you who believe there is a little gap between your brother and yourself and your brother, do not see that it is here you are as prisoners in a world perceived to be existing here. So basically what Jesus is telling us is you don't really exist, which of course initially is a little bit hard to take in the course. And yet if we read the very first line in the course, it says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Now Jesus doesn't wait to page 450. He says it on the very first line, open page. Here it is, guys. And we all go, oh, that's nice. Let's go on over here, because that can't possibly be what he's talking about. And of course, Jesus is very well aware that we're not going to accept that. We're not going to believe that. That's going to make no sense to us whatsoever when we initially begin to study the course, because that's absurd. This is my world. This is all I know. And of course, my world exists here. And what in the heck is he talking about? And yet, this is a very cyclical course, and it gets repeated over and over and over and over and over and over. And hopefully we'll study and practice and come to classes and read or whatever you do over and over and over and over. And every time you hear it one more time, a little bit of the awareness of what he said on that very first phrase in the course will start to come to light in our understanding. But we're very spiritually retarded in regard to the course because we're so addicted to the belief system which we adhere to, which we chose to cover up what we didn't want to look at because we didn't want to be guilty, sinful, and fearful. So we play this silly little game. And then we blame our brother as being the problem of what I'm going through. All right, so I'm going to read that first line again. You who believe that there is a little gap between you and your brother, do not see that it is here you are as prisoners in a world perceived to be existing here. So not only is my brother a prisoner in this world, but I'm a prisoner in the world. And actually Jesus in one of the sections talks about the idea, if you work in a prison and it's your job to make sure the prisoners do what they're supposed to do, you're still in prison too. And maybe you get to go home once in a while, but you're equally in prison just like your brother. So we have placed ourselves in a place of prison, which is never going to solve the problems, never going to really ultimately bring answers, because as soon as one gets healed, another one will show up. So the Course is trying to help us understand we made a silly mistake. And, versus many spiritualities out there where that concept of there was a mistake made and we're sinners and we'll never get this accomplished, the Course simply states we made a silly mistake. It wasn't a very smart mistake, but that mistake is never going to keep us from entering or returning to love if and when we are ready to make that step. The world you see does not exist because the place where you perceive it is not real. Technically, from the perspective of the Course, the only thing that's real is really up there, but this represents the reflection of that within the context of believing we are real. And none of this is real. It doesn't really exist. It only exists because we have chosen to accept that as that thought system as our reality. And again, from the perspective of this, Holy Spirit love is there all the time, but to the degree we identify with the ego, we don't have access to this. So again, a lot of the Course is about removing the blocks to the awareness of love. But in order for me to remove these, I have to understand why they're detrimental to my experience, if indeed I truly want to begin to connect with what love represents. And throughout the Course, I'm just going to throw this little ditty, which many of us makes our mind swirl. The Course very often talks about the idea that we really don't hear, we really don't see, we really don't think, which again is Jesus basically telling us in a very subtle way that you think you're the hero of the dream, but you're really nothing, which again is a real hard thing for most of us to digest as well, because one of the reasons we chose to separate from God was because we wanted an identity. We wanted to be special. We wanted to be different. And we wanted to be the creator. So this is the result of our, as Jesus says in the Course, only creation lives over here, but the terminology for what we did was what we made in replacement of what he made.
And there's also no such thing as time and space.
No, correct. Or me. So the gap is carefully concealed in fog, and misty pictures rise to cover it with vague, uncertain forms and changing shapes, forever unsubstantial and unsure. So basically with that line, Jesus is trying to help us understand that this is just fog and mirrors to keep us occupied because we're afraid to return home. And they're always changing, they're uncertain, they're unsubstantiated, and they're unsure. It's like living in this thought system is like living in an earthquake. We're just never quite sure where sound ground is. But we're so addicted to living in that experience that we don't get how vitally warped living here is. And as we begin to practice and study, we're going to catch those moments of insanity within the world. And Jesus definitely uses the word insanity in regard to us. And he would say, if you live in this insanity versus living in peace and love, any of us would call ourselves insane. But because we live here and we don't get that this is what we've done to ourselves, and we don't get that this was probably not a good choice, we still cling to the value that we give to this world. But slowly we can't be duped as much as we used to be when we first started. Yet the gap is nothing. And again, he's telling us it's really nothing. It's only the value and involvement that you've given to it that makes it appear to be real. And Rose was talking about sand a few minutes ago, but we're going to take our sand to the ocean. And we all know you can, build a huge, beautiful, wonderful castle in the sand, and you can be totally enmeshed and involved in it, and you don't think about anything. And you might want to think about, in the midst of doing that, your mom has just made your lunch and she's calling you home. Come on, your lunch is ready, let's go. And you're totally oblivious to her voice, and we'll call that voice Jesus. And so you just keep building your sandbox and having a great time and playing with your friends and calling things names and whatever you do, building your sand castle. And then you hear another voice in the background, and it's starting to get a little bit louder because you're getting a little bit more hungry and you're starting to get a little sunburned. But you keep playing, and you keep playing. And then eventually it dawns on you, I'm hungry, I'm going to go home. You leave the sand castle and you go home and you re-enter home. And in a few minutes, a big wave comes by and sandcastle is totally gone. And quite literally, that's what's going on in this experience. We're playing in a sandbox and we don't realize we're playing in the sandbox. But eventually, we will be drawn back to that love, because the love outlives anything within the sandbox. But as long as we're intent on playing in the sandbox and making it all there is in this moment, we will experience the sandbox. All right, and there are no awesome secrets and no darkened tombs where terror rises from the bones of death. Jesus is kind of, how do I even want to say this? He doesn't mince with words, in other words. And basically what he's saying with this is, ultimately, guys, there is no secret that we are holding. There is no darkened tombs where terror rises, called our life, and that rises from the bones of death. You have to understand, as I said near the beginning of the class, the ego is the total opposite of love. Love is oneness, connectedness, joy, peace, no death, eternity. This is the opposite. It's literally one of its foundational blocks is I killed off God to exist. Because if there's oneness and now there's two-ness, oneness doesn't exist. And now I live in two-ness or duality, and I can't experience or know what oneness is. I have to drop duality in order to reconnect with oneness. So when he talks about the bones of death, what he's really saying is when you chose for separation, you chose for birth and death. You relinquished your understanding of oneness and eternity. And this is the price you're paying. And we all know in our lives the challenge and the difficulty and the pain that the concept of death plays in our world. And yet over here, death doesn't exist. And we're playing in this world thinking, I don't want to let go of this world. It's got too many things I still cherish. And yet we're living in a world of death and terror and fear and guilt and sin and you name it. And we've left behind oneness and peace and joy and love. And because we're so enmeshed in it, we don't know any better. Now think about it as if you were born in dirty water. So in your entire life, you've been in dirty water. Someone comes along and says, hey, come on over here in this pond. The water's clean. Well, what does that mean, the water's clean? This water's fine. I've lived in this water all my life. I'm good. And then eventually maybe that person might convince us to come over and try the clean water. And then we realize, wow, I can go in the water. I can see it. I don't gulp all this dirt. This is much better. Well, we're so, stuck in the fog and the misty pictures that we aren't convinced that there's something better than this.
The opposite of love is hate. So we are living in a world of hate.
Correct.
And don't even know it.
Correct.
Opposite of love is fear.
Well, yeah. Guilt and fear, hate, you name it. Anything that represents the opposite of what love, joining, and oneness is represented in this thought system.
Right.
But we don't get it because there's a couple little, on this chart, I made sure I put some things that we like on it. because there are shiny coins that keep drawing us into the world. And as Bob mentioned earlier, the things that draw us into the world that are shiny coins or things that we think are nice can hold us here as well. And usually the only reason why any one of us would be even slightly willing to look for another way, to drop this thought system, is when something in life becomes so intensified or so uncomfortable that we are willing to look for another answer. So often shared the story of Helen and Bill, where they went into the meeting and they were going to go into a meeting that were usually horrific and horrible, and one looked at the other and said, there's got to be another way, and the other one agreed. And shortly after, that's when the course started to come into fruition. And I know my husband and I taught classes in metaphysics for many years, and before we would start the class, we would usually ask the people that were attending the class, you know, what drew them to the class. And almost, I'd say 75% of the people in the class had had a death in their family, something they couldn't wrap their head around, and finding an answer in what the world represented in the way that it's represented in the world. So they were searching for something beyond what the world could offer them. And that's the moment where that cosmic egg cracks, and we're now willing to look beyond what the world has to offer for an answer, hopefully to heal ourselves. And of course, for me and for many of us I know, is that crack, or the filling of that crack, of another way of looking at this. But just because there's a crack in the cosmic egg doesn't mean we're done yet. There's much work to be done because we're so addicted to this thought system. Look at the little gap and you behold the innocence and emptiness of sin that you will see within yourself when you have lost the fear of recognizing love. So when we begin to look at what the gap represents and recognize eventually that it's not even real, and it's a gap that just keeps trying to pull me in and pull me in because I've given it so much power. I've given it an investment of reality. So when I step over here, we often get, you know, pulled back in here because this is our comfort zone, even if it's horrible. And we know if a child has lived in an abusive family all their life, and then something really horrific happens and the police come and take that child away and put him in a safe home, that child is going to go kicking and screaming because all they've known is the experience they live in. And in a lot of ways, we're going kicking and screaming, which sounds insane. Why would I go kicking and screaming while I'm walking towards love? And the reason is because I'm so addicted to this and I don't trust this yet, that there's going to be this internal discomfort or battle as we start walking in that direction. But if we consistently stick with it and keep practicing it, slowly the value of this starts to rise to the surface, and this will become less and less tolerable, and we'll choose to go to oneness much more frequently. Anybody have any comments about that paragraph? Nope. All right, we're going to another one, page 596 in the text, paragraph 4. Alrighty, so the end of dreaming is the end of fear, and love was never in the world of dreams. The gap is little, yet it holds the seeds of pestilence and every form of ill, because it is a wish to keep apart and not to join. And thus it seems to give a cause to sickness which is not its cause. The purpose of the gap is all the cause that sickness has, for it was made to keep you separated in a body which you see as if it were the cause of pain. So Jesus is inviting us to consider that there is a way to end the dream. So the end of dreaming, and this is considered to be a dream, We're dreaming a dream of exile, as the Course says, and this dream is based on only what the ego holds in mind, okay? Until we start choosing differently, and then the dream becomes a reflection more and more of the new choice. But basically, when we start the journey, the reflection in the world is going to be ego-based. So the end of dreaming is the end of fear. So we're going to, when we stop dreaming the dream of the ego, we are going to enter a new experience. And love was never in the world of dreams. Again, love, hate, peace, joy, and wonder, guilt, sin, and fear, kill or be killed, oneness. Opposite experiences. So when we realize we're dreaming a dream of guilt, sin, and fear, which we are not aware of initially, when we start to realize that, we get in touch with that, then we start to look at the world and see the world basically for what it is. We don't get pulled in, we don't get duped into believing that it holds the value that we used to think it did. The gap is little. Well, from Jesus' point of view, it looks real little. From our point of view, it feels totally mammoth and unpenetrable, and what are you talking about? But what he's basically saying, ultimately, it's really little. It's simply like a piece of Scotch tape that's covering the real picture. But we're so invested in the piece of Scotch tape that that's all we're looking at. That's all we see. That's all we experience. Yet it holds the seeds of pestilence and every form of ill, because it is a wish to keep apart and not to join. So basically what it's saying is all the seeds of the ego are planted in the same garden, and it's got every form of pestilence or any form of ill. And when the Course talks about ill or sickness, it doesn't have to do with the body, it has to do with the mind. A mind that is chosen for the ego, guilt, sin, and fear is sick. It's ill. It's got a problem. And then it gets projected into the world. And yes, sometimes it gets projected in a form in your body that we would call sickness or illness. But that's, again, not the cause. That's simply the effect. Now, when it says, because it is a wish to keep apart and not to join. When we chose for separation, we had the wish, I want to be separate. I don't want to be an effect of God. I want to be the maker of my own world, my own experience. I don't want to be joined. So as long as we want to not join in oneness, we want to be kept apart. We want to see that there's a brother that's the problem and not me. Again, this was all set up, and it's coming from a subconscious level in our mind, but we reap the effects of what's going on in our mind. And thus it seems to give a cause to sickness, which is not its cause. So when we are in the world and we don't realize there's something that made the cause of the world, we live in the world and we think the cause is something else besides myself. The purpose of the gap is all the cause that sickness has. So again, what's the purpose of the gap? To keep me focused here, so I'll be brain dead and I can never remember to go home. Because when you chose for separation, you were afraid to go home. So the way we solved the problem was to make the problem appear to be in the world so I could play the part of an innocent victim. But I'd say for the most part, we're becoming weary of playing this game. I'm getting hungry. I want to go back home and have a meal. Even though playing in the sandbox has been great fun, I'm becoming weary of this game. All right, so the purpose of the gap is all the cause of sickness has. And again, remember, sickness doesn't mean your body, it means in your mind. The purpose of the gap is all the cause that sickness has. So I want the gap because I don't want to join. I want to be separate or kept apart. And of course, when we choose for separation and being kept apart, Something outside of me has to become the problem instead of me. But in truth, literally, both of these characters, as Don said before, are really coming from my mind. So this individual isn't actually in opposition to me. It is me. For it was made to keep you separate, for it was made to keep you separated in a body which you see as if it were the cause of pain. So again, the whole focal point, once the separation and all this took place, was stay in this box, and as the Course says, seek but do not find. Because you're never going to find the answer of what peace is or where to find it in a box that cannot hold peace. Because peace can only come as a relinquishment of this in order to find out what this is. All right, paragraph number 5. The cause of pain is separation, not the body, which is only its effect. Yet separation is but empty space, enclosing nothing, doing nothing, and as unsubstantial as the empty place between the ripples that a ship has made by passing by, and covered just as fast as water rushes in to close the gap, and as the waves in joining cover it. Where is the gap between the waves when they have joined and covered up the space which seemed to keep them separate for a little while? Where are the grounds for sickness when the minds have joined to close the little gap between them, where the seeds of sickness seem to grow? I just thought that was a really beautiful description of how this process of undoing will begin to happen. So the cause of pain is separation, not the body, which is only the effect. So again, Jesus is reminding us. Again, this is cyclical. You're going to remind this stuff over and over and over again. That the cause of pain is not found in the body or in the world or time and space. It's going to be found in what the cause is, which is separation. Okay? Which is only its effects. In other words, we'll see it here because that's the projection of what's in the film of the projector. Yet separation is but empty space, enclosing nothing, doing nothing, and as unsubstantial as the empty place between the ripples that a ship has made in passing by. And we know, if you've ever been in a ship or maybe observed a ship, as it passes through the water, it leaves a little gap. And then very quickly that gap gets filled in with the water. Nothing's really happened. It's not significant. It's not solid. It's not real. But of course, we don't see it as insignificant or not real, as he keeps reminding us. We see it as, wait a minute, this is my life. These are my things. Something happened. There's a problem. We need to fix this world so I can be okay. And the Course is going to continue to remind us that despite the fact that, the solidity of the world seems so intense, so solid, so real, so important, we need to go up to the mind to have it healed. And that's what's going to heal, a healing that will be sustained. And I know I've given this example before, but if your roof is leaking, and you are busy cleaning up the kitchen floor because someone might trip or fall on the water, you're going to go out and buy new mops because you keep wearing them out. But until you get the roof fixed, you're going to have to continue to do that. Now, the Course is basically telling us the roof needs fixed, and this is how it gets fixed. But until it gets fixed, you still need to mop the floor so nobody will fall in the water. So as you're progressing in the process of the Course, you're going to still play the part of the hero in the dream. You're going to still go to work and do things in the world, but keep working on going back to the mind or fixing the roof, which is really where the answer lies. All right, so where is the gap between the waves when they have joined and covered up the space which seemed to keep them separate for a little while? So again, the automatic response by no longer accepting the gap as your reality is going to be the joining and bringing to oneness what was always one. Where are the grounds of sickness when the minds have joined to close the little gap between them where the seeds of sickness seem to grow? So as we're walking through the world and we slowly become attentive and we slowly become aware of what the Course is really trying to tell us, you might be in the midst of a conflict with somebody in your world, and your natural inclination is to, get them. As you start practicing, eventually there'll be a moment, whether it's in the moment of the conflict or maybe a little after, as it was in Rose's story, an awareness will come of, I can choose differently. I don't want to make my brother wrong so that I can be right any longer. And that begins to close up that gap when we're no longer separate, that we begin to join in oneness, because I'm looking through the lens of oneness, not through the lens of separation. Now, again, Rose's story was so beautiful because obviously her shift had an effect on her little guy. But sometimes when we do these shifts, all it does is irritate the other person, because we have this contract. I do this, you do this. I do this, you do that. And when one of us starts to change that pattern, sometimes it can actually bring up more resistance, because that other individual is trying to bring you back to where you belong. We have a contract after all. But our job then is to do our best to continue to hold that choice and continue to consistently bring it back to that. And if indeed that person's not ready for healing, they'll go find somebody else to play with. But it doesn't matter, because our job is to hold that space of choosing for healing instead of continuing to perpetuate the dualistic kill or be killed experience. And I think we're done for today. Boy, we covered a lot of good, juicy stuff today, man. Woo.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you.
You're welcome, Bob. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to do like I usually do. I'm going to mute everybody, and I'll say the closing prayer, and then I will unmute everybody. And if anybody wants to stay on the line and ask questions or just talk or whatever, we can do that. So I'm going to unmute, and then we'll say the prayer. Okay, take another big deep breath and let it all go. Really feels like this was a pretty intense class, so really release the old and let the new come flowing in, and try to grab those pieces and parts as you go through the week. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen. So I wish everybody a wonderful week, and it was wonderful to see all your bubbly, beautiful faces, and carry on and have fun now, y'all.
Thank you, Marianne.
You're welcome.
I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you. Obviously, I will have a lot of questions, but I'm going to save them for a while and think about these things. I mean, it wasn't like these are all brand new concepts.
Okay, good,
I have
good.
thought about this.
Beautiful, beautiful. And as you're going through the week, if any ideas come up, you can always email me, Sophia. And we covered a lot of pretty heavy stuff here, so don't feel bad if you didn't get it all, because I don't think anybody did for that matter. But yeah, It's a progressive process of hearing it and then digesting it and adding more and so on. So
Right.
really good
Okay.
to have you on.
Wonderful.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice to have you, Sophia.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank
I
you.
was just gonna say welcome.
Wait a second. Maybe we have
Welcome,
to mute.
Sophia, for sure.
What was that?
Oh,
Say it again,
I think-
please.
I was saying, I was just gonna say the same thing. Welcome to our group, Sophia.
okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, pleasure.
I was a little nervous, but I guess, see, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, everyone here is awesome.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And it's kind of a disadvantage because you're brand new and some of the people in the group have been here forever and some people are fairly new. So we just let them all in. And if you're
Right.
supposed to be here, you'll know it's right. And if not, you'll move on somewhere else and that's okay too.
Okay. All right. Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Again.
So
All right.
did Barb share the course with you or how did that all come up? Not, you don't have to answer it. but-
Not, well, I mean, we didn't go into detail, but years ago, I heard about A Course in Miracles and somehow I came upon the book. I don't even remember how I got it. And I attempted on my own and that was difficult. And then, I don't know, somehow the subject came up with Barb and me and I said to her that, I found out that she was doing it and I went one time to a class, but it was obviously not you. It was a different instructor. Maybe something just didn't settle right with me. I only went one time.
Sure.
So then I dropped it for years, except, like I said, a little bit on my own. And I have done other readings that coincide with
Right,
this.
good.
And anyway, it came up again recently and I told her I was interested. And so that's how I'm here.
It's funny how the universe keeps nudging us until we're
Yes,
ready. And then
yes.
it's like, oh, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? But
Right, right.
so where do you live, if you don't mind answering?
I live in Cleveland on the west side, like
Okay.
Old Brooklyn.
Okay,
Mhm.
good. Well, if we ever end up going back to the church, which we usually meet at Unity, that won't be too far for you. So
No, it's not a problem. Okay.
great.
All right. So I guess I'll sign off.
All right.
Thank you.
Again, if you have any questions, just email me. And
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
I have a question.
Sure, Don.
In the beginning, in the separation, when we first separated, we obviously didn't have a body.
Correct.
It was spirit.
Absolutely. It was
And
mine.
spirit ended up in darkness, right? And from that darkness, it made the universe.
Correct.
And it wasn't satisfied with that because that didn't hide the sin, guilt, and fear. So then we created the body, and we hid the sin, guilt, and fear in the body.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question, and you
Sure.
said this early on in today's class, and that was you talked about when we were all in oneness, and you talked about God being creator, us being the created. But to me, I'm wondering if we're the created of the creator, isn't that a sense of duality as well? How would we be able to even make a decision to be separate from if we weren't somehow, I don't want to say different than the creator, but how if we are the created, is
Okay.
that not a duality in and of itself?
Okay, I'm going to answer that question, but you're not going to like my answer.
I know that.
Okay.
I know that, but I'm willing to listen.
Okay. So in order for you to ask that question, you have to believe you separated. But you didn't.
I forgot again. I forgot again.
Welcome home, yo. What else is
It's all
there?
happening.
What I find helpful, and I agree with what Mary Ann is saying, because I've heard Ken say, the first time I heard Ken say it, I'm like, damn. But what I find helpful is the sunbeam separate from the sun?
Right. Yeah. And
is the wave separate from the ocean?
Right.
It's the wave believing it's the ocean. It's not separate from the ocean.
Right. And while it thinks it, or a droplet out of the water, while it thinks it's the droplet, it appears to be separate from the ocean, but in truth,
there's no separation. Yeah.
How did the tiny mad idea even start then? If there truly is no separation, how did that sickness of mind, of consciousness occur in oneness?
Again, that's a question you're asking after you believed you're in separation. And again, I know it's not satisfying at all, but in truth, the only way you can even answer that question is from that perspective.
It's a myth.
It's a myth. It's insanity.
It's
whatever.
An illusion, right?
Illusion, yes.
Yeah.
But again, everybody asks those questions, and everybody wants the satisfactory answer.
We don't know what the creator is.
Right.
It's nothing.
Yeah. Well.
No thing.
Well, then how can we actually be dreaming? Because we're not, right?
We're not.
Correct. And what is a dream? Nothing.
What?
Smoke and mirrors, like Mary Ann said before. It's all smoke and mirrors.
That misty thing. Yeah.
Yes. And see, what we're trying to do is, like the magic person who cuts a woman in half, we get to go back behind the scenes and ask him how he cut the woman in half. But he can't answer that question because he didn't cut the woman in half. But if we ask the question, how did he make it appear that he cut the woman in half, then we'll find an answer. And that's basically the same thing with the Course. If we're asking, how did the impossible happen? Well, the impossible didn't happen. But if you ask me to show you how it was that the impossible didn't happen, then we're in a different realm. And again, we're all asked the question. And your question in regard to we as the children of God have creative qualities, for lack of a better word, because God can't take those qualities away from us. So within the context of the belief in separation, those qualities appear to be creations. But the Course is very specific that nothing in form really represents the creations that the Course is talking about when we're the oneness of God.
But isn't it part of how we have love, and we can feel that light inside of ourselves, especially when we are connected. I put it up here because we're talking about in the decision maker, instead of being it so hard, fast, and ego kill or be killed, we still have that light inside of us. I know, because
be careful with that though, because there's only one puppet. Okay, one puppet. And the puppet is either being operated by this, and it's going to feel guilt and fear, or it has to drop that and align with love, and then it will feel love. But the puppet in and of itself is nothing. It doesn't feel anything. It doesn't see anything. It doesn't hear, and none of that happens. But it will have the experience of the reflection of love when it's choosing for love. And it will just as much have the projection of feeling guilt, sin, and fear if it's aligned with that thought system. And as Don was talking, it's a thought system. This one or this one. That's what's running the show. This is just the puppet. It's being operated by one of these two puppeteers.
It's strange because the desire to have separated to begin with, even though it didn't actually happen, everything is so impermanent, and yet we seek permanence. We seek that permanence, that stability. Part of our fear is the uncertainty of everything that creates, conflicts and other things, because we're so afraid, because we're looking for that permanence, and
Absolutely. But
it's such a conundrum.
Right, but the deal is we're not willing to drop the uncertainty to find it. And until we are, we're going to run around here chasing our tail.
Well, and today there was discussion, you know, I think Rose was talking about the video that she watched and just the guy pulling over and just feeling the sadness and letting it wash through him instead of resisting it. And that is something that I so need to work on, for sure.
Oh, I do too, Denise.
Well, and we all do, but understand, guys, this setup was purposely set up so that we would never, ever, ever be conscious enough to remember to pull off on the road and do that.
Right.
Okay? This is real, guys. That's it. This is it. The very fact that any one of us are even questioning the possibility that that might be something I might try someday is monumental. Except for we evaluate it as, well, I forgot to do that again. What's wrong with me? And then we feel guilty, and then we're back down to doing what we do. And that's just the ego finding just one more way to take care of the problem.
Yeah, you have to be very diligent with that because it's very sneaky.
Yeah, and
You know,
just
I did the course. I'm doing the course wrong.
Yeah.
Well, Ken says if I was perfect, I wouldn't need the course.
absolutely.
So of course I'm going to do the course wrong.
Yes.
What else is new?
And, you know, especially in the initial, you know, first 50 years of practicing the course, what we really want to do is become aware, well, I'm joking, but I'm not joking, is
Right.
simply realize, you know, watch the ego play out this. You know, why would I mean, we are, but why would we be surprised that the puppet acts like this when it's being run by this?
Exactly.
And love doesn't exist here. How could it be any other way?
Yeah.
But we have this personal investment that I'm not supposed to do that because you see, I'm a sweet little innocent victim and I'm really loving, and the other guy's the idiot and the jerk. But that's not true as long as we're aligned with this.
Yeah, but there is the good.
Well,
It's been helpful to
There is the good associated with the ego also.
well, yes, and also be very, and I'll get to you, Helene, be very aware within the context of our world, this is bad and this is good. Well, I prefer good. You know, we're not stupid. I prefer good. But bad or good covers over truth. And until I want truth more than I want anything else, you know, this is going to satisfy me somewhat, but it's not going to take me to oneness or healing. And notice where Jesus is. He's not over here. He's over here, you know. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, the pressure, that feeling of overcompensation.
Please, that it's been helpful to me to understand that the ego's sole purpose is to say no. And my purpose is to say no to the no.
No.
So whatever is going on, it's a lie. It's an illusion.
Yeah.
Okay. But the ego thought system does not want me to go back to the decision maker and make another choice, and is always one step ahead of me. So when Rose says you have to be vigilant, that's what it means to me.
Yes. I mean, it just helps me to realize, oh, I'm still listening to the ego. You're not doing the course wrong. You're doing the course wrong. And you know, I was caught up in that for, you know, quite some time. And then, you know, it hitting me, oh my God, I'm still listening to this thing. Yeah. I'm still in this thought system. Help me. You know, I had I had another experience this week, and it was helpful. My one coworker, her dog, we found out her dog had died the other morning, and her boyfriend were on their way to the vet. The dog died in the car on the way to the vet. I had a dog. I understand the pain of that. But my initial reaction was, yes, I don't have to deal with her today.
Yeah.
But that's a good example of how we think we're wonderful, loving, and sweet, but the facts are when we really start looking,
But the gift, Marianne, for that was I didn't feel bad.
Good. Good, good. Well, that's
It was just
rising
like,
up.
here we go again. You know, I must have decided wrongly again. You know, oh well.
Yeah.
Was
I
that
really.
Otis?
Pardon?
Was that Otis?
No, it was not
Oh,
Otis.
okay. Oh,
No, this was somebody at work. No, Otis. In fact, Otis is on his way here right now, so I got to go in a few minutes. But you know, this was a coworker.
But for Rose to come to the point where she didn't have guilt by observing herself doing or acting that way has taken many years of reinforcement and practice in the course. And that's the magic of it. If you keep working it,
Yeah,
you'll
you
come
just
to
gotta
more and
keep
more
at it.
moments of that where it's just like, okay, whatever.
By the way, Marianne, 6 years tomorrow
Really?
since I started coming to your class. So thank you. Thank
Nice,
you
nice.
all. Thank you all. You have
Happy
all been so
anniversary.
helpful. I can't even express my gratitude to you all. Everybody's been a wonderful teacher, so I thank you.
Well, I think the same of you. I mean,
Thank you.
especially being new. I mean, you are very important to me. You're all very important to me. I mean that sincerely. Like I need this.
You know, like Sophia said, she was nervous. I was nervous coming into your class, but the moment I sat down, it was like I'm home.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm home. And it's, you know, it's been an incredible gift. So thank you.
Yes, I will second that, Rose. Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. And also to have everyone to speak of it and to reinforce what the feelings are like and where they go and how they come back and all that, just to get that flow of how it's kind of supposed to happen. Like it's not going to all happen in a minute. It's going to just take a while, and you're going to stop overcompensating for all the stuff you felt like you had to do all the time. And it just, you know, that and that's where the peace is. You all of a sudden you feel peace and you're like, oh, well, that feels better.
Yes. Well,
Thank you.
And that's what's going to pull us in that direction, because when we do it and we have the effects of a shift, then we want more of that. Even if I'm lost 2 seconds later, there's some, you know, it's like seeing the light in the, you know, having someone light a match in the forest, and now I know where I want to go. Even though that light went out, I know that's where I want to go. And that's
quick question, Marianne. In the readings today, is the course using the gap and illusion as synonymous?
I would say so, yeah.
That the gap that is spoken of is the illusion, the dream.
Right, yeah. And it's the illusion of, you know, the false dream, I guess you could say.
Of separation of self and other.
Correct. But he does use the word gap quite frequently in the course.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
I noticed some practical applications in the verbiage of the language rather in the course that talks about working with your brother and, you know, trusting your brother and listening to your brother and giving to your brother, and, you know, all of the benefits like we talked about when we give of ourselves to someone else, and we do it not from the ego place, but because we are in that place of connection and we give it from a place of love, we receive these gifts back. And that is how we get in large part healed.
Yeah.
And
right. And, you know, we have to remember that the guilt, sin, and fear is in our mind, but we dumped it in our brother. Okay.
For sure.
But now I don't remember that it's in my mind. I only remember this. So my brother becomes an extremely vital aspect of my healing. Because the only way I know, and again, my brother could be my fingernail cracking or whatever. So, you know, obviously physically, it can be a physical person, but it literally is anything within the context of the world that takes my peace away. The only way I know or have access to what's going on here is through my brother. So literally the course says my brother is my salvation. And eventually we're going to want to send flowers to our brother, probably initially that's not going to be on your list because he's an idiot and I just want to get rid of him. But as we understand, he's reminding me of what's going on in my mind. And until I know what's going on in my mind, I can't heal. There's no option. There's no ability to come to that.
There's like a little escape route.
Yeah.
For there you are with your brother and victims and all that, and you say, I wonder what the Holy Spirit would say about this. And in that little 1-2 seconds of thinking, you've escaped from the duality. You've escaped into, well, I don't know. Let's see what is this about? It's irritating right now, but maybe if there's a chance, if there's another way, let's see about it now. And then it becomes a healing because for me, it becomes a healing instead of a like something I have to do, instead of a obligation to something that's a power that's between me and that person. And it doesn't helps me jump across. That's
But I
Thank
think
you.
the initial issue is
Bye,
I'm so
everybody.
miserable I can't stand it anymore. That's gonna bye Jason. That's the moment where I'm so fed up. I'm so debilitated. I can't figure it out on my own. That's going to be the initial step forward. I'm not going to do it because I like my brother, because he's an idiot. I'm going to do it because I'm miserable. Okay. Now, eventually, I think as we understand this more and more, we're going to do it because I know that's going to help me, and it's going to help my brother as well, because I'm letting him off the hook. You know, this whole thing, kill or be killed, is when I try to kill my brother, I reinforce the guilt, sin, and fear he already has in his mind. It's not a very nice thing to do. And of course, I reinforce it in my mind as well. And whenever I release it for myself and for my brother, because I'm living over here now. And the only way I could see my brother then is through this instead of separation.
You know, Marianne, what I would like to be able to do is to give myself the space to respond and
You're breaking up again.
react, you know, so that I can, instead of being so raised, to pause.
Yeah.
And then if I need to respond, I can respond. But
yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way, especially, you know, if you got up in the morning and you got a note on your desk that said, okay, 3 o'clock today, so-and-so is gonna, you know, really piss you off. You know, be prepared. Well, that would be great. And at 10, I'd set my alarm and okay, all right, I need to settle. But that's not the way the ego works. The ego's job, and Helene mentioned this somewhat before, the ego's job is for you to stay here. Don't you ever leave this space. We have a contract, dude, and it's you stay here. So it's going to sneak in any way it can to maintain its investment, and this is who you are. So initially, you're going to get whacked so many times, you just about fall on your face. But as you keep working with it, as you keep practicing it, you're going to have, you know, the gap literally is going to get smaller. And you aren't going to be duped by what the world has to say or how it pulls you in as much. But that comes with great practice. So just be really gentle with yourself.
Marianne?
Yeah, Linda?
I wanted to respond back that I agree what Rose was saying and everybody else. I have learned a great deal from everybody in the class. And I know I called out for this Course in Miracles. And I feel very honored that I'm in with this group. I feel very akin to everybody. What I wanted to say is, this is like a gift that I have drawn here, in the way you teach the class. It carries me through the week. And what I want to say also I forgot, I wanted to say something. um, the people in my life and my friends, since I've told them I've been in the class, because you don't really know how you're gauging, kinda, just some feedback. But they have told me they've noticed a change in me, that I'm different, and that I'm seem to be accepting things better.
Exactly.
So that's kind of a confirmation that I'm doing the right thing, going through this process with the ego and trying to deal with all these situations I've been going through since the class. It's like it's throwing it in front of me and say, okay, let's deal with this one. And I did deal with a situation what Rose went through this week with one of my banks or creditors. And my initial reaction was, I did get very kind of outraged because there was something that was lost, apparently in the mail and stuff. So I was trying to deal with them and another person that was connected. And this went back and forth, and it wasn't getting any better, and I couldn't understand because I didn't want my credit ruined.
Sure.
So and they could feel me upset. So we lost connection with the one person. I lost connection. I had to call back and I got somebody else. And she felt me and she said, don't worry, calm down. Let me go back and look at the account. She couldn't find it. But in the meantime, I realized people around you and me could feel this anger. So that wasn't going anywhere. So why would they want to deal with me?
Sure. And
So,
usually your anger escalates their anger normally. If you picked a good one because she was able to calm you down, which was
yes, yes, because she approached me a different way. And I guess I just caught myself where she did it. And so when she went back and looked, she says, I'll tell you what I'll do. And which really saved me. She said, I'm going back into the card, which was Discover, and you have points that are gathered. I'm going to take that amount and put it towards that payment till we get this straightened out. So that way it'll wipe it out and you're caught up until you get it straightened out. I says, oh, I said, thank you so much. I says, really, this is a big help.
nice.
So I called, in the meantime, she's looking at, this is funny. She's looking at the account again because I kept saying the amount was $300. I'm not gonna believe this. So, of course, I didn't catch it. She looks at it, she goes, what was that amount again? I said, $300. She says, well, I do see a check here for $3.
Uh-huh.
I said, oops. I said, I apologize. I really apologize. I'm so sorry. I really was caught up in that so bad.
Well,
And she said, no worry, you're all straightened out. You don't have to pay anything anyway.
Not even the other $297.
Yes.
wow. And that will start to happen more and more frequently. It's like,
yes, it did.
We've cleared away the fog and the mirrors, and we can see more clearly. And it's like, who wouldn't want to walk closer to that after you have some experiences like that? It's just like, yeah, man, that's what I want. That's great. I love it.
It's all the teachings you had, and it's gone in a minute. That one thing, I want things to be fixed right away.
I'm with you, girl.
Clear it up and solve this problem, but it can't be until I calm down and let it flow through me, and to hear the person work it out. So I was lucky.
Yep. Well, but you saying you're lucky, but it's like understand that that's going to be more and more the reflection into your world, because you're spending less and less time here. And our experience is, boy, am I lucky that happened. But it's really a reflection of your choice to connect with oneness instead of duality, as you used to do more and more frequently. So it's like we're reaping the effect of a new choice. And it's, I do the course right for that reason right there, because that's nice. It's good stuff.
But it is
It's not that what you learned was gone.
Right.
It's still there. It's just all of a sudden, whoosh, we pull the veil down. And it seems like it's gone, but
right.
it is.
Right. And think about it like, my example of cleaning the kitchen floor. Well, if you start to fix the roof, the puddle's going to get smaller, and then eventually it'll disappear. I can throw all my damn mops away. I didn't like to mop anyways. Well, we're constantly mopping in our world in one form or another. And as we keep choosing, some of that roof is getting fixed, and we're not having so many things to clean up. Now, initially, it may look like there's more, but eventually, as we keep working on it, less and less takes our piece away.
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Yes, namaste.
Great to see you all.
Much love, Helene.
Helene. Thank you, Helene.
Bye.
All right, it's 26. I think I probably should get moving too, but it was great having so many on talking tonight.
It was a great class.
Okay.
Just a
Thank
great
you.
class. Thank you so much, Marianne. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Helene, Marianne, I just wanted to answer you sent me that note about my friend, if she would be interested to be on the call.
Yeah, right.
I haven't spoken to her, but she would be 6 hours behind us at the time of the call.
Okay.
And then she also would have to have someone help her do that. So I don't know. And are you referring to like having, like it would be like at this time on a Saturday,
Right,
and then it would
right.
be,
So
okay.
the other option could be is I could maybe send her a already pre-recorded class. And, if you want to experiment, you might mention it to her and ask her if she'd be interested. And then she could, watch it anytime. And if it works right, it would be basically she'd open up the email and click on the link and it would show up. So it wouldn't be real complicated.
Okay. I guess that's what I'd have to tell her about, that there's a link.
And again, if it's not something she's interested, I have no investment in it, but
okay.
If it would
Yeah,
be,
well, thank you so much. I think she'd be interested, but I don't know what other things she's interested in now in that regard. But I'll so thank you for that. I forgot to. I meant to mention that last week, and I forgot to. Okay, thank you so much, and you have a lovely week also. Thank you.
Guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bless you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good week, and I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So did you try going back on the site and play it all, or did you just had enough that night, which is understandable? There was a lot of information to. Woo.
Yeah, I have it here. I have a bookmark. I didn't pull it down because I want to look at it later on. I have more time.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it here. I'm afraid if I close it down, I'll never get it back.
I understand.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
And I got your email on the class on next week, and I see not many people have signed up.
For Toastmasters, yeah. Usually they don't until I send out that first email, and then they start to gradually sign up. So that's normal.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. I will talk to you soon then, girl.
Yep. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.